Welcome to the Gemini video for the sign series. I'm Susie and I'm really excited to do Gemini's video today because there's a lot of slander. There's too much slander. I feel like it's in the top three slandered signs, um, because not only because I'm trauma informed and I don't believe in putting shame or stigma on signs because that's rage baiting, view getting absolute garbage, and not good for people to hear. But it's not astrology. So we don't do that here. I will give you the real. I will always be authentic. The quality of the knowledge will be there. I have been doing this a while. I also have some really lived experience with Gemini placements within myself, my loved ones. I have a lifetime of experience with Gemini placements as well as the astrological academic knowledge. And we will cover all of that today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the myths of Gemini and whatnot. And I'm of course, I'm going to truth canon some things I don't like that I see out on the interwebs. Um, and also, we're going to get into slides because, as a true Gemini Mercury that trines Jupiter in my chart and is sitting right there, boop, 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 right on my MC, I allegedly sometimes might maybe be slightly overly verbose. So the slides, they're real pretty. They might help some of you, but I know they help my Gemini ADHD squirrel. Um, I mean, it serves. I love my Gemini Mercury. Let's just be clear. I would not trade it for anything. I love it. It also gives me my funny. Okay, it's one of the things that give me my funny. So I no backsies. I don't want to return the item. No, thank you. I like truly love it. Um, and it makes me capable of doing a lot of things at once and multitasking, which we could also call a trauma of response, but that's for a different video. Um, but it is right there pinging the top of my chart, and it talks to a lot of things in my chart. It's very active. It's also one of my final dispositors. So for your sake and mine, we're going to have slides, and that is mostly to keep me on track because otherwise I will take several left turns at Albuquerque. Okay, so first of all, let's just get this out of the way. Gemini is about duality, informed duality. They are curious people. Do you like Tom Holland? Do you like Chris Evans? Do you like, I know I'm just naming Marvel people, but I'm a nerd. What did you expect? So, but I mean, go see if your favorite actors have Gemini placements. Do we know a few famous Geminis we all don't love? Mm-hmm. I'm not bringing that energy in this video, but we know, right? And sometimes I believe that Geminis get this. I dislike this, and I've heard this from people that are supposed to be professionals, whether they're metaphysical or astrological, of calling Gemini two-faced. No. Somebody who allows one thing to be what it is while they're allowing another thing to be what it is called open-minded. Say it with me, kids. Um, so that duality is because we need to explore. We're about to go back into Uranus and Gemini. It won't retrograde back into Taurus anymore. Do you know how many breakthroughs, discoveries, genius inventions we will have? Well, Uranus is in Gemini. It's going to be amazing. So if you have had a bad experience with somebody who has a Gemini placement, especially, it drives me crazy when I see astrologers who have had personal bad experiences with one placement or another, and then they're like, that's top three worst signs. Like that, again, not real astrology, and you are willing to fight. If you are welcome to fight me in the comments because my Gemini Mercury is for it. It really is. Um, sometimes not everybody is for everybody. Sometimes we can't all be a jar of Nutella. So if somebody runs you the wrong way, then they rub you the wrong way. But we're not going to take a bad experience with a sign, and maybe it's more than once, right? And maybe that's just not compatible. Maybe like there are certain Venuses that are less compatible than other. But real astrology understands that all the placements in the chart, the degrees they are in, the other planets that they are having conversation with, the houses, huge, the houses that they're in, all mitigate each individual placement. You can meet a lot of other Gemini Mercuries and they won't remind you of me, and you'll probably think, "Fine God," right? Like they are not, we are not all the same. My son, one of my best friends, and my dad, all Gemini moon, very different people, very different people. Um, the lovely and brilliant Lori Rivers is a Gemini Venus, right? I mean, thank God, because the quality and the volume, my God, the volume of it, quality information, the value that she has in information, her ability to bring us more than one subject matter, right? Chef's kiss. So we don't do the Gemini slander here. Gemini are not two faced. They are just all about options. And if you are somebody who likes to wear the same couple of things in your closet, and that is great. That is great. I love that for you. If you like it, I love it for you. If you are somebody who eats the same thing, who doesn't like sometimes get the joke or will explain their jokes after they take them, tell them you might be somebody that a Gemini, um, you might not keep their interest because they need constant stimulation because big brain, Gemini, big brain. Uh, Again, I know what you might be thinking. It's not all Geminis. They could have different things that mitigate, and socioeconomic, geographical, cultural, religious, early childhood, and trauma all contribute to the way that those little placements are cooked and served. Okay. But Geminis really appreciate the stimulation. They do. I always say if you love a Gemini and you are interested in keeping that a long term friendship, a long term relationship, one of the things I'm going to advise you to not do is bore them, right? Don't we can all be onions with layers, and let those layers be peeled slowly. Don't put all out all your tricks at once if in the company of a Gemini, because if the stimulation runs out, there might be less interest. Again, all the other placements can mitigate. Geminis are so creative. They gather information. They naturally are researchers, much like Aquarius. They are a, a beautiful, funny, very interesting, active air sign. We need them for that movement. We need them, and and their ability to flux and flow does not make them flip-floppers or two-faced. That is their ability naturally to take in more information and change their mind. Okay, so I love some Gemini placements. I love all the placements, but I am starting out this video different because I am over. Come see about me. I invite anyone on the internet that wants to argue to the death with me about Gemini placements and any kind of slander you have for them. I'm happy to have that conversation. Um, we are going to move into our slide portion because otherwise, this will continue to be Susie's fiercely protective TED talk that nobody asked for. Let's go to our slides. By the way, this video is public. I'm putting this out for everyone. The rest of our learning series is in membership. And so whether you're seeing me here and there's membership, next week I will be starting a Patreon and there's a membership there as well. Um, Most of the time that I have done the houses, we have talked about finding your final dispositing energy, how to find the rulerships, and we have talked about all the planets. None of this is to teach you in a way for you to become an astrologer. You could have all of the basic knowledge of every house, every planet, every sign, how the aspects works, and what you will understand is ingredients. You will understand that salt is salty and pepper is peppery and cinnamon is cinnamony. I think it's beautiful if you want to become an astrologer. Go over to Lori Rivers and take a class because I was already a practicing professional astrologer, had all been studying, off and on for decades. And when I had the opportunity to take a class with her, it was a take my money situation because any access to her is good access to good astrology. Okay. Moving on, let's talk about Gemini informed duality. So, the overview of Gemini first is that it is mutable. We have three different modalities in astrology, there's mutable, cardinal, and fixed. Gemini is mutable. It allows that change. Like it will take in more information and be able to change. It is not fixed or stuck in any kind of idea. If you have Gemini, let's say as your rising sign, you may be more amenable to change when that change comes, whether you ask for it or not. You may be able to like roll with the punches with that mutable Gemini. Okay, I'm taking in more information. This doesn't serve me anymore. And you might not, we might not like the change when it comes, but Gemini risings are, they are open to take in the new information, which is great. This is obviously an air sign. We're going to get into the qualities of Gemini, but a lot of that is based in that air, in that thought stream. The ruler is Mercury. This is where we see Mercury come in, and we want all of the information. Give it to us all. So I can be informed and keep taking in new information and make my decisions accordingly. The polarity is yang. It is active and outwards. We have yin and yang. I don't like using positive and negative. I don't like using female and male. That's fine for electricity. I really don't like to hold up those constructs in the space. So, um, much like fire and air are both going to be those yang outward, while earth and water will be the yin. Gemini is the third sign. This is important. In my learning series, you will always find me going over the connection between the sign and where it stands in the astrological wheel. Gemini stands as the third sign of the zodiac, a position that marks an essential transition from primal impulses of Aries, stabilizing growth of Taurus into that realm of thought and awareness and connection. This is where we become aware of others besides our caregivers, right? Aries, we're aware of ourselves in that first house. The second house, we're aware of our caregivers, our home surroundings, where we look for comfort and stability, foundation. And now we're in this third sense of being, this third house of being, this third sign of being, our siblings, our neighbors, our friends, and community. As the first of the air signs, Gemini awakens the mind and opens the door to curiosity, learning, interpretation, relational awareness. I would describe it as the bridge between personal process and influenced consciousness. Now, I'm going to say that again. I think that Gemini is the bridge between that personal process, right? So, like, if we were on an island unto ourselves and something happened, we could think, okay, let me process this, right? I just have to worry about myself. Let me process, how do I feel? Let me just, center around my own thoughts. Where when we have Gemini, we have our own thoughts, and then that it looks like a two, right? We have that second influence consciousness because we understand we are part of a community. We are now bouncing. Do y'all love a rabbit hole? I feel like you do. If a lot of people will talk about Gemini as that twin sign, I see it as the mirror. And a lot of times, the people that come into our lives act as mirrors, and our reflection is what we feel about ourselves through their reaction to us. It's relational awareness. And we'll get into where the sweet spot of this is so that we are not only, especially for my Gemini moons out there, we are not just feeling about ourselves only through. We want to have awareness of others, but we don't want our sense of self, our sense of id, our sense of self consciousness to be only from the reflection of others. That symbol of the twins captures that essence of Gemini's role, a dual, multifaceted awareness that is capable of taking in multiple perspectives, shifting viewpoints, not two-faced, and creating connections across experience. Think about your first time meeting the neighbors and realize you can go over somebody else's house and be on their play set. Think about the first time you go to the park down the street. Think about the first time you go to school. Those are all like our beginning experiences of awareness of others and community. And that relational awareness comes across those experiences. Here life moves from simply existing and the building blocks of outer information and communication. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and that quick messenger. You will also find Geminis to be funny and quick-witted. They are the person that you kind of want if you're dealing with somebody that's verbally challenging you, throwing a smackdown your way. You want a Gemini placement by your side because they are going to be able to quickly deal with that. And two Geminis in a space is probably a nice, funny space. So that quick messenger associated with language, thought, perception, and the movement of information, we often associate Gemini energy with someone being quick-witted. For example, I get ahead of myself. This rulership gives Gemini a bright and alert mental quality, drawing attention to how ideas are transmitted, exchanged, and understood. One of the phrases you will hear me say constantly is, does that make sense? Because I want to make sure that I'm not just talking to hear myself speak. The communication part is so important to me. And sometimes I could use 20 words instead of 5. Listen, I have flaws. I try not to make denial one of them. But it is not to hear myself speak or to show off or say, look how smart I am, or look what I found out, or look at this information I've gathered. It is because the value of communicating it and helping somebody else with it is really, for me, as a Gemini Mercury with that Jupiter, expanding and magnifying it in that I love you more conversation. The value is in actual communication and exchange. And then I want to hear what you think. Because so many times, in fact, yesterday I was having a session with somebody about opening the Patreon, and they already have one, and they were helping me, and just from them speaking, it kept inspiring me to do things to make the space user friendly, or it's it is that bouncing back and forth. Gemini appreciates and values, and there is value for other people who don't even have Gemini placements in that deep desire to exchange and bounce off and inspire. This rulership gives a bright An alert mental quality, drawing attention to how ideas are transmitted, exchanged, and understood. As a mutable air sign, Gemini inherently is adaptive, flexible, and capable of changing direction quickly. It is mutable and it allows constant adjustment, responsiveness, and curiosity, while its air nature grants intelligence, verbal skill, and a love for discovery. Also, probably you're sapiosexual if you've got like Gemini, Moon, Sun, Venus, Mars, or Mercury. In many traditions, Gemini resonates naturally with the themes of that third house, emphasizing early learning, communication, siblings, people who feel like siblings, first friends, local environment, short journeys, contracts, etc. Duality, flexibility, intelligent communication. You're going to hear me repeat things because that is how I know you will leave this video really having those themes absorbed, because my Gemini Mercury wants you to leave getting something from this. Gemini defining theme is duality. That twins represent a consciousness that can hold more than one idea at a time. Literally just having this conversation with a friend that has a strong Gemini placement, and just that, like, it's okay if everything isn't what the construct of what everybody else thinks should be, because I'm more than happy to hold that this can be true and that can be true. If you know a Gemini placement, they are probably a huge fan of a Venn diagram and understanding that life isn't black and white. It is a Venn diagram. This dual nature allows Gemini to see both sides of the situation, to change perspective fluidly, to remain intellectually open. Flexibility is a central sign, is central to the sign. Gemini adapts quickly, thrives on movement, responds naturally to shifting conversations, new ideas, changing circumstance. Uh, Listen, if you're in a crisis situation, like you're stuck in traffic, now there's an accident 300 feet up, but there's, while everybody else might be like frustrated and, oh no, this is going to make me late, will the Gemini have a lot of ideas and maybe not know which one? They are still going to come up with ideas. For them, they don't see the only idea is now we stay stuck in this traffic. So sometimes they're able to change direction. Okay, so let's do this and let's go do that other thing we were going to do when we got there. The options are just uh, there's a saying that universe holds infinite possibilities, and those possibilities are based on our perception, and then our decisions based out of our perception. The external stuff that's going on has less to do with what happens next than our perception and our decision making around our perception. This is one of Gemini's like superhero qualities. Mercury's rulership enhances Gemini's mental speed, lending that sharp intellect, the humor I've been talking about, curiosity, and a gift for language, whether that's the way somebody speaks. They will like accents a lot. They will like different ways. And a good sentence wove together, that whole idea of our words being our most inexhaustible source of magic, very Gemini. Stephen Forrest describes Gemini's archetype as the storyteller, teacher, emphasizing its orientation toward discovery, perception, and the continual pursuit of understanding. Lifelong students, Geminis. As he writes, reduced to a single word, the Geminian North Star is curiosity. I got to tell you, I I named my video before I read that quote, but that kind of confirmation felt good because it's Stephen Forrest. You are going to find, when I said that Geminis don't like to be bored, it's the other reason why they are lifelong students. They will never cut themselves off from more information. Again, you could have placements that mitigate that, but it's more likely you have, unless there's some kind of severe interruption to that, it's thirsty for more knowledge, which is it's not finding people boring. It's needing to know there's more to learn. There's more mental activity to be obtained and procured. In chaos, you might find Gemini placements able to handle situations with with more ease. Think Mercury, think Loki, god of mischief, that impish energy. Just a quick listen, mythology is interesting. It just is. It it's not how we really use astrology today, but it's interesting. The mythology behind Gemini often invokes the story of the twins Castor and Pollux, one mortal and one immortal. This is also where you will get the foundation, the source of a lot of what I think is kind of toxic, or very toxic idea of there's like one person, like one of, and one of you get it in this lifetime and one of you don't. And while we can have connections with different people that we've had in many lifetimes, I don't like to like focus on that twin. I'm not going to say the rest of it energy, but this is some of the source of where the net gets extrapolated and sadly used to be monetized against people who are feeling lost without relationship. This story symbolizes the interplay between the human and divine aspects of consciousness. It is the continuous conversation between different parts of self. The image of the twins reflects Gemini experience of multiplicity, not as a fragmentation, but as an awareness. Imagine it like a mirror. Again, I'm going to come back to the same themes. This is more like a mirror and how we inherently start to filter our communication through how it appears to reflect on other. I do that all the time. And at my ripe old age, I am a well-seasoned chicken. I- I'm never annoyed with the person that makes me like pull back I'm annoyed with myself that I'm still doing it. But sometimes we see what we say wasn't it, and especially to a Gemini placement, if we feel like it didn't land, if it wasn't communicated, if it doesn't help the situation, if it's not bouncing off in a way that is understood, we can filter our communication. And depending on other planets, placements, etc., this can be simply to avoid conflict. There's a difference between a lively debate and just feeling like this is going to go south really quick. And Gemini, with that mutable, is less likely to want to dig in and have a fight that doesn't add to sexual chemistry, uh, mental acuity, or anything that if it is just like you're not understanding me and I can't make you understand to me on that, that is when the mutable sign will just say, yeah, we don't, I'm just gonna change my wording so that the conversation can just end. S- I'm gonna assign this to Gemini moon or sun more than the Mercury and Venus and Mars. Um, Again, depends on the placements. Everything can be mitigated. Gemini invites the integration of diverse perspectives and experience, allowing the individual to move more between identities, ideas, and roles with fluidity. Fluidity is also with that mutable Gemini is a word that I would associate with Gemini. Uh, as a first air sign, Gemini introduces the movement. Got ahead of himself. Here we go. The movement, breath, communication, and social engagement. It marks the beginning of human interaction with ideas environment through language and interpretation. Let's talk about what Gemini rules. Gemini governs the arms, the hands, the shoulders, the lungs, and the nervous system. Do you know somebody with a strong Gemini placement? Do they have a little bit of anxiety or a lot of anxiety? It's common. common, because think about that frenetic energy of Gemini. So again, doesn't have to be, but it can be. These areas reflect Gemini's symbolic connection to breath and communication by lateral movement, lungs, shoulders, hands, arms, two of them. Um, the lungs exchange air, the hands exchange objects, Gemini orchestrates and the exchange of information. In life, the sign rules communication, writing, speaking, learning, how we learn, contracts, neighbors, short trips, the immediate environment. These realms describe Gemini's involvement in everyday mental and social activity. Because again, that third house, those the first trip to the park, the first trip over to the neighbor's house, that first day at school, those are very social shaping experiences, shaping early attitudes and perceptions. When planets uh, when planets on the chart points fall in Gemini, they bring curiosity, versatility, a lively mental quality into the areas they influence. A sun in Gemini often inspires a life centered around learning, conversation, storytelling, movement. Again, we will find a lot of actors, creative chefs, um, people who bring inspiration. If you can be lucky enough to love what you do, I am one of those lucky people. If you love what you do, it really doesn't feel like working. It feels like an extension of yourself. It feels like a satiation of your soul, of your drive, of your purpose. And Geminis, when they are in that sweet spot of calling, and they are able to storytell and have movement and be brilliant. Uh, that is a beautiful thing. Stephen Forrest notes that Gemini vitality arises from the sense that each day offers something new to discover. I have said a million times in my life, wish I had 20 bucks for every time. If I thought there was nothing left to learn, I would be so sad. I would be so sad. The idea that I don't know everything makes me extremely happy because I know that means tomorrow there's more to learn. And that's just kind of my jam. When Mercury is in Gemini, the mind becomes agile, quick, expressive, love for words, humor, and mental play. Gemini moons, Venuses, or Mars placements bring communicative, emotional styles and adaptability and a preference for variety. But I say, don't bore them. Intellectual engagement in relationships, sapiosexual, or desires. Be bored. Um, A strong emphasis in Gemini can manifest as a wide range of interest, fluid identity expressions, social agility, and creative mental energy. No placement functions alone. I'm just reminding, we're halfway through the video, and I just want to remind you of that. One placement doesn't mean if somebody has Gemini, they're going to prefer to be fluid or have social or sexual agility. No placement works alone. Planetary aspects, house placement, and the larger context all contribute to how Gemini ultimately express in their personal life. I'm just going to give you Gemini suns are, I especially find Gemini women to be able to be playful and humorous and thoughtful. They can bring you both sides. Gemini sun can be a really great friend because they can understand when you need to process and they can understand when you need to be light and not be heavy in the processing. Gemini moons, I have a lot of Gemini moons in my life. Like I said, it started with my dad, and he was my person. Um, and then my son, and quite a few of my friends, and quite a few of my community are Gemini moons, and I love them. Uh, I do tease them that as a reminder that they have to feel their feelings and they can't just think them because sometimes, and I'm not going to get too deep in this, it will just feel safer to think the feelings than feel the feelings. Gemini Venus, the value of the information, the value of the duality, the value to be for something to be interesting and to keep going, and the depth of knowledge and the value of knowledge and other cultures. Again, I want to point out our Lori, who has lived in different countries and is s- that woman is so well versed on so many. She is not a jack of all trades. She's master of actually quite a few, and that value to it. Um, and funny. I have been in the privileged place to have personal conversations as well as professional conversations. So funny. Gemini Venus even is funny, which always I wouldn't always associate Venus with sense of humor, but it, yeah. When we're looking at a Gemini Mars, the ability to get a lot done. And sometimes they need a little help with the finishing part, but they can get a lot done. And Gemini Mercuries benefit from their fixed placements. So if you have a strong Gemini placement, especially if you have like Mercury or Sun and Mars, you will benefit from fixed placements. Look at your Saturn to try to look at how you can harness the let's finish the job part, because it is also gonna hold my hand up here. There's so many, you have such an awareness as a Gemini Mercury that there is so much to explore that something else can spark, and then you're pulled in a different direction. But funny, smart people, Gemini Mercuries, if I don't say so myself. When Mercury is in Gemini, um, the mind becomes especially agile and quick, right? And I'm going to tell you that also my life as a Gemini Mercury has constituted of me being the class clown, big time, and possibly just showing up for tests, like being able to ace a test to the chagrin of whatever teacher felt like I wasn't paying attention. I was just bored and I was doing something else. I absorbed all the information. So I was like both the two. I was the class clown and I could, if I was interested, A's were easy. A's were easy, but my entire life was Susie talks too much in class. Susie doesn't pay attention. I don't, and then my mom would go, okay, test her, flying colors every time. But clearly she's paying attention. Um, but you will often find like the class clown and also very smart, but bored of being smart. When we have a strong emphasis in Gemini, it can manifest in that wide range, right? And we talked about that. Again, the interest. It's not just an interest in everything, it's just an awareness that there is, like, we can't live a long enough lifetime. We might not be able to live enough lifetimes to gather all the information that the universe holds. So it is that desire to grab as much of it as possible. Um, whether that's a conscious or subconscious desire, it's there. The expression of Gemini transits. Let's talk about when like Gemini Mercury or Gemini the Sun is in Gemini or anything is Gemini. We're about to have Uranus in Gemini in a couple of weeks as I am recording this on April 4th, 2026. When planets transit through Gemini or activate Gemini placements in your own chart, life often becomes more mentally active, communicative, and mobile. There may be increased interest in learning, reading, studying, taking on new subjects, taking on multiple subjects, writing, or speaking. Social interactions tend to increase, multiply conversations. Uh, We're socially on the internet now instead of physically social. Some people are still very physically social, but you can do both nowadays. So the social interactions may multiply, but you may not leave home to do that. And conversations become very stimulating. There are a couple of signs that if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I've got a good snack and you want to sit on a countertop and have existential conversation that just stimulates you, that was better than whatever he did earlier in the evening. That I'm going to look for somebody with some Gemini. These There's a couple other signs. When I get to those, I will include them in that 3 o'clock in the morning in the kitchen conversation. These periods often encourage short trips, contracts, exploration of local environment, engagement with siblings or neighbors, the reorganization of daily routines. Gemini transits can highlight how a person communicates, how they take in information, how they express perceptions. Decision making comes up a lot. And the need to just make the decision, like, you're not gonna you've got the idea that maybe it's not time to make the decision because there's probably more information out there, and that is another sweet spot of the evolution of Gemini, is learning when I have to be okay with the information I've gathered so far and just make the damn decision. They can also bring forward themes of needed change, variety, mental stimulation, the overall tempo, thought, conversation, daily life all just tends to feel like it accelerates. Like all signs, Gemini has varying stages of understanding. We're going to talk about the development now. Whatever stage of development you're at is exactly probably where you're supposed to be at. Okay, so there is no judgment. There is, I always say, like, aging is inevitable, but the emotional, mental maturity and evolution is very individual. Like all signs, Gemini has varying stages of understanding and development and balance. When unbalanced, its adaptability can become scattered. Remember that it rules the nervous system, right? So some may experience difficult maintaining sustained focus. That's basically what ADHD is. Not that I would know anything about that. When they feel overwhelmed, the quickness of its mind may turn into nervous tension, anxiety, overthinking, over talking. Duality may become fragmentation or indecision. Communication may become overly intellectualized. Gotta feel your feelings and not just think them. If it feels less safe to lean into the emotional presence or driven by stimulation rather than meaning, these challenges can reflect Gemini's task of integrating information rather than just simply collecting it. The sign learns to translate curiosity into understanding, movement into purpose, and perception, right? Because it's really about our perception, the decisions we make from our perception of the external things going on, into coherent expression. Did I just skip a page? Yes, I did. The In evolutionary astrology, Gemini represents the evolutionary intention to develop perception, curiosity, communication, mental flexibility. Stephen Forrest emphasizes that Gemini's purpose is not mastery or certainly certainty, but exploration and openness. He describes Gemini's path as one of learning through experience and conversation rather than adherence to every single viewpoint. In this tradition, Gemini placements may indicate a soul that is learning to observe without judgment. You'll hear me say that a lot. This is a judgment-free space. Fuck shame. Shame is a waste, useless, because two things can exist. Different point of views can exist. That's a very Gemini trait, to kind of lean into those philosophies and understandings. Absorb information without attachment. Listen, I'm so grateful for my Gemini placement because a lot of my other placements would have me a tragically attached person that would have had a harder time processing. Um, for Gemini, this includes learning how to communicate authentically, right? Not changing our words around the reflection of how the other person is receiving it, and how to integrate also with and adapting without losing one's center of gravity. Forrest also reminds us that I think we're all students of Steve forever, but identical charts never produce identical lives. The expression of Gemini always depends on choices, right? The perception, and then the choices made from the perception and everybody's level of consciousness. You want to really get into like level of consciousness. Lori speaks about that so beautifully. Okay. The development journey, right? The journey of Gemini unfolds as a maturation. Listen, that impish, playful, fun, Loki energy can sometimes come off childish, right? When we look at some Gemini placements, they seem to struggle to emotionally mature, and some of them have emotionally maturity down pat, but they are playful, they are cosplaying, they are they're going to board games, they're going to trivia, they're doing something that is childlike that still sparks their curiosity. What we want is the balance of all of that. But the goal, the journey is to blend it from that raw curiosity that's kind of childlike and impish and that fun energy with the maturity. Early on, Gemini gathers impressions instinctively, right? Like so we meet the neighbor, we meet the people at school, we meet the teachers, not just the people our age, but the other adults, and we maybe make somebody laugh. And we realize, oh, it's not just our parents that'll laugh. Like I can get other people to laugh. I'm going to impersonate my teacher. I'm going to impersonate that person. I'm going to see somebody on TV and do an impression. This becomes like little hits of serotonin because we're doing such a good job reflecting others and communicating it, interpreting it. And that can feel good. As you know, Gemini develops, we want to discover the true intelligence that involves the synthesis. I always talk about synthesis in astrology. You have to synthesize the placements, or else uh, that's the magic sauce of a, a good session. People don't come back if you're not able to understand them so that you can understand also the transits and then understand what decisions in the context are better to put on their plate for them to make that informed agency, that informed decision. Synthesis and blending, and then having comprehension. And at some point, getting to the point where you feel like you can make the decision and you're not having FOMO about the information you're missing out on. As Gemini develops, duality softens into multidimensionality, giving room for nuance and perspective. Nuance, nuance, nuance. Life is everything when it has an understanding of nuance. Again, not black and white Venn diagram. The sign begins to recognize that its quickness is a tool rather than an identity. It is a tool, not your identity. And that its twin nature is not conflict, but complementary. Whenever I think of Gemini, I think of that song, Two Bad Bitches In, Two Bad Bitches In, Two Bad Bitches Are Friends. Guess what? Those bad bitches can be within yourself. Um, Communication becomes more skillful, more empathetic. Humor is the bridge rather than a shield. And ideas become creative forces rather than distraction, squirrel. In its highest expression, Gemini becomes a translator of experience, a storyteller, a connector of minds, and a catalyst for learning. It evolves from simply reporting life to interpreting, offering clarity, insight, and adaptability, helping other people adapt when they don't have that adaptability through information, through communication, and understanding the way to communicate with somebody so it lands and it can be received. Sweet spot, chef's kiss of Gemini. And we're almost at the end here, kids. Social influence of Gemini. On a collective level, Gemini placements influence society through the spread of ideas, right? We know when Mercury is in retrograde, we might see some misinformation. We also associate Gemini with like social media. Um, it is the spread of language, the spread of ideas. The the zodiac principle behind journalism, writing, education, when we're looking for like, are you somebody who might write a book one day? We're probably looking at your Gemini placements and that home base of that third house, that third sign area. Gemini keeps energy in society moving, exchanging, cross pollinating. Again, we're looking at actors and people who, I mean, never before have we seen such a translation of the Gemini energy with social media and people who communicate and people who tell the stories. Uh, Listen, when I see somebody in their bed in 3 seconds, I know whether I don't even care what they're talking about. It's the way they're talking about it. I'm in. I'm in. I've just met you and I love you. Just, I don't care what you're talking about. I'm in. Um, those, it creates community, which again, if we go back to those first couple of slides, is one of the themes of Gemini. Uh, it, we hope that Gemini, right, in its on its best day, collectively, it is influencing collective intelligence and progress. It definitely does. It definitely does influence progress. Like I said, Uranus and Gemini, we're going to see a bunch of breakthroughs. We're going to see a bunch of level ups. We're probably going to see some invention, and it's very good for society in that way. Yes, we can see overload, and I made a video about Jupiter and Gemini almost 2 years ago where I said, this is when we're going to be careful too that we don't get overwhelmed. We don't take on too many projects. It can get a little overwhelming, a little like overstimulation. We've all seen those videos while we're scrolling. My new favorite one is this lovely human who's like, are you still awake? Go to bed. It's not like the soft ones like, hey, maybe it's time to put down the phone. I love the ones that yell at me. Yep, I needed that. um, but we want to have lively conversation, lively debate. These are all social, connecting people, um, in the hopes that we evolve intellectually. I know right now it's hard to look around and see that. The summary and the keywords, right? When we think Gemini embodies the archetype of the thinker, if we think about that statue, the messenger, we think about he's even on the FTD. I'm having a brain blank. Um, we think about the winged messenger and the storyteller and the sign of curiosity and movement and perception and the lively play of ideas. Play, fun, youthful, cosplaying. I'm telling you. Go somewhere to anywhere where people are all cosplaying. You're going to find Gemini and third house placements, quite a bit of them. Mentally quick, thriving, conversation, discovery, humor, and all the exchange of information. Keywords include curiosity, communication, duality, all the words you've been hearing all video long, intellect, wit, perception, versatility, movement, breath, learning, connection, humor, the creation and interpretation of ideas. I am sure I could go on for another 100 keywords. I'm going to do us a favor and not do that. It's best when Gemini enhances insight, communication, and relational awareness, helping individuals and communities stay connected and informed. The receptive richness of life's many perspectives. And here's what I want to say. What's important for you to know is that when Mercury is in retrograde, it's time for you to look over how you're communicating, rewrite or evaluate contracts, reevaluate anything. The retrograde is for when Mercury is in retrograde. Yes, technology gets wonky. We all get a little cranky. But also, when we are in Gemini season or when Gemini is going to either activate a house cusp or activate, maybe you have a Gemini placement and it's going to get activated by one of the air signs or Mars. you should expect for things, the days to feel like they go like this, to be busy, to be so when Gemini energy comes along in transit for your chart, maybe you're having a progressed transit, or you're having a Mercury ruled or a Gemini ruled solar return that year. Those are all advanced astrology, but that is when we can help prepare. Like, okay, you might be busier. This is a great time for you to make sure you've meal prepped, for you to maybe get your clothes ready for the week and put them in one of those sweater bag hangings. That's one of my favorite. I'm going to be too busy and overwhelmed and take on too many things. Put my outfits in one of those sweater bags hanging. So I've got everything all for the week. Um, Astrology helps us know ourselves, and then it helps us know what's coming, and the combination helps us to make informed, it gives us that informed agency. That's my favorite thing about astrology. One of my favorite things about astrology. If you actually are looking for an astrology appointment, you can go to SuzzyEvolutionary.com, or you can go to workastrology.com. They are both going to take you to the same exact link. I book all my astrology appointments through Lori Rivers, and lots of other videos to explore here. You can consider membership or just hang out in our community, which is awesome, full of Geminis. So it's funny, and we listen and we don't judge. We might make a dark humor joke, we might make a quick-witted joke. We're not judging. I hope this has been helpful to you. Please leave me tons of comments. You can argue with me, even. I don't mind. Engagement is engagement, people. And I would love your feedback. I would love to know what your Gemini placements are. And I hope if you want to see the rest of the signs, you will consider, I will tell you, even the $3 level of membership gets you into the learning series. Not so shabby. So I love you. Now you love you. Love your Gemini placements. Love your Gemini people. Have a great day.